Historically, federal judges have had a hard time defending themselves. It's not just limited to the outside partisan rabble-rousers. This is a speech by a United States senator trying to discredit a judge, calling him a lifelong right-wing activist, a partisan ideologue, an anti-abortion zealot. And I wonder if you will join me in condemning that sort of attack.
I am against divisive rhetoric of all kinds, but I do not have authority in this matter.
Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas in focus now, rounding out that montage. Obviously a member of the Judiciary Committee. Also, you sit on the Finance and Intelligence Committees as well. First of all, what was the highlight of that hearing yesterday with the Attorney General, would you say?
Well, Harris, I think more in terms of lowlights rather than highlights. But, you know, I was disappointed. Merrick Garland served for many years as a federal judge, and by all accounts was a fair judge. But he knows that these attacks against the judiciary, whether it's the Supreme Court or other judges, is unfair and it's dangerous. We know that people, perhaps unstable people, can be incited to commit acts of violence, and indeed it was just last year that Justice Kavanaugh was being threatened with assassination. And I would hope that Merrick Garland, as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, would condemn it, and he didn't do it. He wouldn't do it.
Wow. Well, remember, it took the President of the United States many days to even mention that that was going on. You know, I had just told viewers that a lot of hot topics came up. This was one of them. A new report from the Washington Post says tempers were flaring in the days leading up to the August raid on former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago property. Apparently, the Justice Department overruled FBI officials who were hesitant to carry out that search. Well, it looked like a raid for classified documents. Here's the Attorney General on that.
My question is, how often do you overrule FBI field agents for political purposes?
That's not an accurate reflection of what the article says, and I'm not able to comment on the investigation. I will say, as a general matter and at a high level of generality, that in my experience, long experience as a prosecutor, there is often a robust discussion.
Robust discussion. It sounded like it got, well, they said tempers flaring. What's your take?
Well, the Attorney General, unfortunately, is undermining trust and confidence in the Department of Justice and the FBI. And when people see the disparate treatment, the different treatment in different cases where President Biden is involved or the Vice President Pence and then President Trump, they come to the conclusion, in the absence of other information, there must be a double standard. And indeed, there does seem to be a double standard, and that's dictated by politics, which is unacceptable.
I mean, all of that, it blew up. I mean, everybody knew that the raid had gone on, so on and so forth. And we sat for months without knowing that Joe Biden had classified documents in at least one location. It started at the Penn Biden Center, named for him. He got $1 million to use his name for that. It is different treatment. Why?
Well, I think, unfortunately, we don't have an Attorney General who has the strength of character and the will to stand up to the politics that are coming, obviously, from the White House and directing his actions. You know, being Attorney General is a tough job because you are the chief law enforcement officer of the government, but you're also a cabinet member for the President of the United States. And what we need to, what the American people want and what they deserve is impartial justice administered without fear or favor, regardless of whether you're the President of the United States or an average working family. And they just do not have that trust because of disparate and differential treatment like this.
Look, before we move on, because there were so many topics that they got to A.G. Garland on, since I have you, I have to ask this. You're on the Intelligence Committee, and the documents from that first batch, there were some top secret documents that Biden had, and they had to do with at least Iran, China, and other countries. Ukraine was one of them. What can you tell us about any connection points that the Intelligence Committee would look at between some of what Biden had and the investigation that's going on with his son, Hunter Biden, who was known to make some pretty shady business dealings with at least one or two of those countries.
Well, this is another area where we've been stonewalled by the Biden Justice Department. As a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, I and other committee members have a constitutional responsibility to do oversight of the intelligence community to make sure they're following the rules and not abusing the power that they do have, which is significant. And so far, we've been stonewalled by the Attorney General. He says this is he doesn't want to jeopardize an investigation, but we'd like to know whether President Biden's access and carelessness, frankly, with classified documents has jeopardized our national security, and we can't assess that without getting access to the documents. And this is not a partisan matter. This is something that both Chairman Warner, a Democrat from Virginia, and Marco Rubio, a Republican from Florida, have been very clear about, and they're supported by all of the members of the Intelligence Committee in seeking access to these documents, as is our right.
Well, and when you say access, you're talking about those documents at Biden's home, potentially, that were parked next to the Corvette, because that's what he told us, and his son then seen driving that same Corvette at their home in Delaware. Let's move to the border. Senators also putting AG Garland on blast over the crisis at our southern border and the massive amounts of fentanyl pouring into America. Ranking member Lindsey Graham pointed at Mexican drug cartels as the root of the problem.
Mexican drug cartels, should they be designated foreign terrorist organizations under U.S. law?
Yeah, I think it's the same answer I gave before.
Would you oppose some of us trying to make them foreign terrorist organizations?
I wouldn't oppose it. We need the assistance of Mexico in this and designating.
Is Mexico helping us effectively with our fentanyl
They
problem?
are helping us, but they could do much more.
Well, if this is helping, I would hate to see what not helping looks like.
Garland then insisted the ultimate decision on that falls under the State Department. Senator, you're leading a delegation to the southern border tomorrow. Tell us about that and also your reaction to what you heard from the AG yesterday.
Well, the Attorney General says it's not his job, it's the State Department to deal with these matters. I'm for giving the federal government every tool that's necessary in order to combat the cartels that are smuggling people and drugs into the United States, and as we've said, taking so many lives and adding to crime in communities all across our country. I'm taking a group of senators to the border starting tonight, so they can see what I've seen on many trips to the border and listen to the experts, the people who I've learned from, and the community leaders who are being overwhelmed by this humanitarian crisis. And I think they're interested in getting more information, and I'm interested in getting some allies to help us in this fight against this crisis, which sits at President Biden's feet. It's the Biden border crisis.
Your presence there, whenever there is someone with a bully pulpit, it's so important at the border. It's really too bad that the White House won't go, and that they won't go more and more until they solve it. Senator, great to have you in focus today. Thank you.
Thank you, Harris.